everyone, Joe here from ActionX. Welcome to What's in the Tube, or welcome back if this is your 6th Tom Swift episode review. So I unfortunately have to share some bad news. This is the first time this has happened live on the show, because the last time we reviewed a series week to week that ended after we wrapped instead of having a proper conclusion was Katie Clean back a couple years ago, back during the first year of What's in the Tube. And now, thinking more about it, so sad to say, Tom Swift has been canceled by the CW. I have been keeping track with the ratings, and it's not the best, and I'm assuming the streaming numbers have not been there as well in terms of just the CW app one, which is very disappointing. It very much is. I will blame it on the fact that, we are going through a transition right now with, I believe they confirmed that Nexus Star is going to purchase them for 70%, which is basically majority shareholders, so they'll be taking over basically. And it's going to be a big transition, and like they said before, that it's business, that they have to produce the shows that are going to give them the biggest numbers. And yes, while Nancy Drew is still one of their top performers, the Drewniverse sadly will not be expanding any further, which is definitely disappointing. I'm not gonna say it. We're gonna go for this episode. I'm gonna kind of be a little bit more critical, just because of my my opinion here. But just going from it, when we began this journey, like I was a bit hesitant. I'm like, well, Nancy Drew is not the Flash. It is not Walker. So when they announced a spinoff, I was like, okay, this is good. Like, they're doing well. They believe in this universe to make it a universe, and hopefully we'll get crossovers down the road. And so far, thankfully, I'm very happy that this is just a standalone story, very self-contained. We acknowledge that this is the same Tom from Nancy Drew, but they're doing their own thing. They don't need to, which is great. I don't mind that. I don't really have an issue with it. It's just that for me, like, I'm now bummed that, they put all that effort, all that TLC into it, and it's not going to go anywhere. And my fear is, after this episode, is that I don't think they'll get everything wrapped up by the time we wrap season 1 in a couple of weeks. Well, not season 1, the show now. So it is very, very disappointing. It is very obviously we will still be resuming everything with Tom Swift going through. It's just we will not be having a season 2 predictions video, because we are not getting a season 2. And considering just the state of how everything is, I very highly doubt we will see Tom Swift return as a show. Maybe on Nancy Drew, but I'll talk more about that when we finish up the show properly in about 4 weeks or so. But that's future talk. Let's just enjoy the ride as we have left. We still have, after this week, 4 more episodes to go. You still have 5 weeks more of me, so let's see how it goes. Let's see, because with this week's episode of Tom Swift, oh boy, this was not. Oh, this was. I have been very, not very. I'm saying that like I'm not for all forgiving reviewer. I'm not. I'm just being honest with my thoughts here. Like, I never found any episode to be amazing. At best, maybe great. At least good. I've always found this to be a good show so far. This episode, I will safely say this was the weakest episode of the 6 we have so far. It is the weakest, just because I just felt like some things were off, and this definitely felt like a budget episode, and this definitely felt like I understand its purpose, but when you only have 10 episodes to tell your story, you kind of really need to be valuable of your time. And I've been very kind of like, okay, maybe I understand that, they were thinking that we were going to get multiple seasons, so it's okay to like have some stuff pad out in the first season, just to have an expansive web of plot lines to utilize. Now that we know that we're not getting a season 2, and also the fact is that in this era of television, especially when you have so much competition, not just on network television, you have a lot of streaming competition too, that you really want to be certain that, okay, the story you're trying to tell in that first season or in that season of television is going to wrap up in that season. You could leave a cliffhanger if you're almost absolutely certain that, yeah, you're going to get another season. So if you want to tease something in the last couple episodes, you can do that. That is that's perfectly fine. By the time we ended this episode, I was left wondering, like, as much as I understood where they were going with, and I understood in this world, like, okay, that does make sense for you to have this sort of thing. Did we really need that? That felt more like a season 2 thing where, like, okay, we're not in the spoiler section yet, but like we saw the season 1 plot had it been a season 1 is over. We're done with that, and then big revelation. This was the true reason we kickstart season 2 with that full run. This felt like they're just trying too much in this season so far. And again, I could be wrong. Maybe by the time we reach the finale and they do actually wrap everything up, I will be satisfied. I'll be like, you know what? They somehow did it. I've reviewed enough seasons of Walker now to understand, like, yeah, you can somehow pull it off. You can somehow pull it off. But for me, I just don't believe it right now. This episode definitely did not have me hyped, or not hyped. It didn't have me assured that they're going to wrap everything up by the end of episode 10. I don't think they will. I could be wrong, but again, I have been wrong plenty of times before on just any show I review in general, so I will hold all my thoughts at the end. But with this episode, it definitely is the weakest of the 6, and I hope that we can maybe get along the path next time, but we'll see how it goes. We'll see. But with that being said, let's go through the Butcher recap and talk about this week's episode of Tom Swift. It is very hot today in New York. We are in a heat wave, so me wearing a blazer in my small confined space for audio purposes with no AC because I care about y'all to not have any background noise is going to kill me, but we're gonna get through it. Let's get through this together. So we begin where the last episode left off. It's apparently the next morning since Tom's been kidnapped. It kind of, well, they say it's next morning. I don't really feel certain about that. Isaac still somehow has not been kicked off the Swift property yet. He's still roaming around just to talk to Tom about, just saying his goodbyes and his appreciation for, him hiring him when no one else did after the army. But before he's able to kind of just continue rehearsing that speech, he does find Tom's watch on the floor. He finds his car having the broken mirror in the side view, and a very big, like a really big visible handprint on the window. So yeah, Isaac, knowing Tom too well, and also his OCD with maintaining all of his cars and his technology and his personal belongings, he knows something happened to Tom. Zazie is doing something. I guess she's getting ready to she's gonna do her. She's ready to do her whole solo life, ready to kind of be her own hype woman. And then Isaac comes in and is like, Tom's been kidnapped. We need your help. And she's like, God damn it, I can't be away from Tom for one damn episode. I can't. I just can't. So they get pulled in. They head back over to the Swift lair, trying to figure out what the hell's going on. They wake up Barkley, who apparently was EMP'd when Tom was kidnapped. So all he got was a mysterious van rolling into the property, but that's about it. He got wiped out. He got knocked out. So they just assumed Tom was kidnapped by unknown associate. They assume at first it's the road back because that's their only adversary by this point. So they immediately find the bodyguard from before. I know they gave him. They say his name so many times in this episode, but I'm already forgetting. They find him in a parking lot in some fighting clothes for some unknown reason. And immediately he's just denying everything. We have nothing to do with this. My assignment is to get Tom. So if they wanted me to go kidnap Tom, I would have done it. I wouldn't even be here right now. So definitely it's someone else involved here. So now they're kind of stumped, who could really have kidnapped Tom? So meanwhile, Tom is actually being held at some abandoned warehouse somewhere in the world. I wonder why there's so many abandoned warehouses in TV shows. Is the economy not sustained enough for them to have a working operational warehouse? Is that something that's not believable apparently? Because I don't know. I'm just viewing it as this is just kind of really, really, really weird in my opinion. So he wakes up, he finds himself on a table with a bunch of broken cell phone pieces, and this is his first task to try and get himself out of here. He still has his electronic ring, and I think they tell him here, but they'll rephrase it later in the next trial, that if Tom uses his ring at all to kind of get himself out of this, he will be faced to punishment, but they don't tell him that yet. So it took a little bit of time, a little bit of tinkering, also him examining the room, that they really kind of armed this room to the teeth. But eventually he gets out of it. He meets with this mysterious guy in a suit. I think his name is Gareth. I want to say that his name is Gareth, and his bodyguard, his goons. And they're here to test his knowledge, see if Tom is really warped to snuff without, having any sort of fancy technology behind him. And of course, Tom's obviously asking, why should I participate in your trials, considering the fact that I have no real claim to be here, which they're right. He doesn't have a personal claim here, but they did kidnap a random pregnant woman who's being held in a room that is getting less and less auctioned by the minute. So if Tom doesn't complete these trials, she's going to die. Which I'm like, it would have been more interesting if they brought in his mom or someone, like, maybe Limo or anyone else, but like just a random woman. I mean, okay, I mean, all right, sure, like, yeah, I mean, superheroes just have to save random people all the time, so like, why the hell not? So Tom agrees. He has no choice. So his main trial is to. I forgot what the main trial is. It has something to do with pain. I'm gonna be honest with you. I was morely focused on the other plot line going on that I really did not pay attention much about this one. It's about precision, and Tom has these white clothes where he has to achieve this task without getting any sort of like paint or dye on him. So that's a big challenge he's been trying multiple times, and he has to reset his clothes every time he does so, which I swear to God, every week the CW is giving us an excuse like, we need to see Tom shirtless or showing some part of his body because this man is jacked, which I get it. He has a very nice body. It's a very well made body, but we don't need to see this every episode. Even Arrow like is very sporadic when we saw Stephen Amell without his shirt. Like maybe once every few episodes. We're getting Tom shirtless every single week, which I'm like, I get it. You're trying to raise up the horniness. I get it. I understand completely. So meanwhile, the other Swift squad's trying to figure out where the hell Tom is. They, I believe they returned back to the manor. Someone broke in apparently, and it's just a jumbled mess. It doesn't look like totally torn up, so they were just assuming they were looking for a specific piece of tech, and they're looking around. They don't find anything, but they do find this residue from a specific warehouse that would have this residue left over from a material that they used to use back in the olden days, which is the same place that Tom is being held at. And they also give updates that the 4 satellite piece is still out there. That's something, we still need to save Tom's dad, that hasn't been forgotten yet, and so they say, you know what, we can't do this without Tom, so we need to go find Tom. We get Tom back, then we'll focus on the satellite piece. So, which I'm like, it makes sense, but then again, this entire thing's a timetable. You got the road back as well. You got other random people, like a weird cowboy who's using, like, dude, you don't know who the hell's gonna find these pieces. You really don't know. So you got to keep attentive on that. Where I want to say we go next is, so Tom completes that trial finally. Gary congratulates him. As a reward, he tranks him, so Tom gets knocked out. The rest of the Swift squad arrive at the warehouse, and at first they just figure out that, oh yeah, they moved him and he was here. They were too late, so they're trying to look for clues, but Tom's actually being held in another room with a it's like an EpiPen, like it's meant to wake him up. So they stab it in his thigh, not aware what chemical compound it is. So it does so, it works. It's just a very simple wake up chemical. Tom's had worse things inside his body. And the way they said it is like, I want to know Tom's backstory. I want to know like all the misadventures he's gotten over the many years. Because the way they phrase that, it's like, goddamn, Tom. I mean, goddamn. I mean, then again, it's the same with anything. So I'm not really surprised there. So they're all acquainted. Tom catches them up on the whole situation, and then, now they still have to really focus on trying to get this woman out, because, this woman's life hangs in the balance. Obviously, the team's like more focused on, well, you're good, so let's split up. You go get the piece for the satellite. We'll go rescue the woman. But Tom's like, no, I have to do this. This is my responsibility now. So the piece can wait. My dad has been there for months. He can survive there for a few more months. And I just want to go like, bro, it's your dad. If it was my dad, like, let's say my dad was like realistically speaking, like in the bottom of the ocean, like I will do anything I can. Like that is the priority. Fuck my job. Fuck everyone. Like if you want to join along with me, that's great. But like my dad is more important. Like I'm going to do this. I do get that. Yes, it's a woman's life in the balance, but they were going to handle this. I was like, yeah, no, let them handle this, Tom. You go. But now Tom decides to like, you know what? No, we gotta do this. So they start trying to track her down, trying to figure out where she is. I think eventually they do get her location. They head over to the Swift van. Tom does a magic changeover with the bodyguard kind of watching, which I get it. You guys want to fuck. We get it, but we can't. You're on the opposite side. This is just a temporary truce just so we can get back to normal. I do get that. So they're getting the plan in order. They're getting everything straightened out. And so they find her. So they arrive to the place. They break in. The first thing they find is a OBGYN room. Thank you, Grey's Anatomy, for teaching me that thing. Plus my friends who are in the medical field. So they're looking around. They're trying to figure out where the hell this woman is. Another door opens and it's a AI instructing them. They're like, yeah, one at a time. You all go in. You check for weapons, some weird thing, and Tom immediately rushes in. The door closes behind him. So they're both separated, and Tom looks at the monitor to realize that There are two conjoining rooms next to them, one with the woman and one with the rest of the Swift squad. And what Tom has to do in the next minute is decide which room is going to get a full on amount of oxygen and a full on amount of nitrogen. So one's going to die, the other one's going to die, are going to live. So it's like Tom's going to have to realize, is he going to save the innocent woman or save his friends? So that's kind of like the task presented to him. Tom, knowing that his friends can figure out a way to get out of this, he gives the woman the oxygen, but he only gives his friends like 5 minutes with the nitrogen room. So they're trying to figure it out. They're trying to be ingenious. A couple of funny banter there. I'll be honest with you there. But they're trying. They really prepared this room to the teeth, so it's very hard. At this point, they just are concerned with getting a fresh oxygen supply going here. So they drill a hole in a weak spot in one of the weak walls. So that works. It buys them a little bit of time. And so, also, yeah, so I want to say the bodyguard submits to the nitrogen first. He faints for a bit. Once they get the hole drilled out, Isaac mouth-to-mouths him to kind of resuscitate him, and it works. So they just assume, okay, it's over. You know, we got a little, now we're going to figure out how to get out of here. 3 random bodyguards show up and just knock them out. So, and Tom's just like concerned, like, what the hell's going on? Like, you know, this wasn't what I signed up for. You know, obviously all confused and dazed, like he can't even do anything, but he gets a traditional bag over his head again, and they drag him back over to the Swift Manor. He's back over there. The entire place is seemingly empty. He's told to put on these special glasses, which basically are like, honestly, these are like I swear to God, I've imagined these glasses so many times over the year. It's basically, you put them on and you scan a person, you get everything on them. You know, their medical records, their criminal activity, their social media presence. It's like, honestly, this needs to be a thing. Obviously, it's an over abuse of power, but you have no idea how much less bullshit people can get into without these glasses. It's it would be an amazing invention. Jeff Bezos, get on it. Anyway, so Tom puts it on. He's looking around. He's kind of getting this weird history lesson about the secret society during the Tubman era of, you know, when they were focusing on, you know, all the whole. I sort of like God, I'm saying like it's nothing, but like I'm not a history buff. I'm not. I barely pass history every time I take the class. I apologize. That there was a secret sector, black men and women who were secretly plotting to kind of have this sort of financial independence from everyone else, because, you know, as much as they got their freedom eventually and they got some rights. Well, they got their rights, and they were just still financially dependent on them, which is still allows them to have some sort of control over them. So the selective group always thinks of like, we need to have some sort of place where like we can have all the financial independence we want and just make sure our lives are just the way we want it to be without any interference. I do understand that. I do get that. It should be a thing, but it's not in this world. It sucks. Tom turns around, Garrison's there, but however, it's not Garrison, because they reveal Garrison, the real one, actually died in 2003. So it's like, well, we're in the 2020s, so how are you alive? Or how do you look so good? And also, another thing, he was born in 85. This guy should be 18. This guy does not look 18. This guy looks like a freaking late 30s. This is Power Rangers Ninja Steel all over again, I swear to God. So barring that, it turns out it's his mom in disguise. And I was actually a little flabbergasted to like, the fuck? Like, is this another character I forgot that looks like Tom's mom? No, it is Tom's mom. It turns out this was all a big test. This was all a big test for Tom to do in order to make sure he can fit into the potential community that was mentioned back in episode 1. So I'm like, oh, that makes sense now. This kind of makes a little bit of sense. And Tom says confused, like, what community? And that's where she gets into more detail that, yeah, the whole thing I already mentioned before about it, and that the Swifts are the key people to kind of make this entire vision happen. The mountaintop, they call it, where everyone that's, you know, in their society can just move in there. They kind of guess as well, it could be a planet if it's eventually colonized, but this is the plan to move all of them over to a new planet and start over a brand new society for them. And, you know, obviously Tom's spaceship was to be meant to be a big proponent of that, not just in the ability to maybe kind of reach outwards if they can't find a place on Earth, but also the financial like impact it would have had on their company in terms of like the excess revenue they would have gotten in, but obviously that didn't happen. But they still wanted to make sure if Tom was ready to like to not only just be a part of it, to lead it, to be able to create this physical mountaintop. How would he build it for their people? And that was like the big thing. Like, he had to go for this trial to make sure, like, does he have what it takes, not only just to be the CEO of Swift Enterprise, but also to make sure that he's ready to build and lead this community. And for me, I felt like, okay, I kind of get what they were going through. I kind of get it, but this just felt really too soon. Again, it would have been better for them to save this at the very end of the season. I get that in terms of the chain of events, Tom's mom was waiting for the moment. Like, Tom is ready. I see him. The cores are there for him. We need to figure out if he's truly ready. That's when it was called. So I'm just saying, like, these hitmen were basically on like a payroll. Like, okay, here's another event. This could be it. Just be patient. It's like it's just like a I wouldn't even like to live like that. Like, I just work for like weeks and like thinking, like, is this kid gonna fucking learn his lesson? Like, Jesus. See what I mean? So Tom is a little bit baffled at first about the whole thing, and then he's like, well, how does Tom really get emotionally attached to it? So Tom's mom reveals that after she had Tom, or before she had Tom, she had another kid that they were supposed to have, a daughter, a sister for Tom. However, Tom's dad was busy in his work, so he wasn't with her at the time, and Tom's mom went into labor too early, so she was kind of like figuring out what the hell am I going to do, and the rest is history. But eventually she gets in contact with a doctor who's willing to help her out with this whole procedure. She's happy at first, but certain things happen, and sadly the daughter becomes a stillborn, so she was never able to grow up, and she dies. And Tom gets really emotional, since he could have had a sister. He could have his mom and dad like suffered that major loss, and they never told him about it. And I could definitely understand what they're going for. I could definitely understand that. And Tom's like, of course, like, we'll do this. And this was not just only a test for Tom, but also Tom and his friends, to see if they were also worthy to join the society, if they're willing to put everything on the line to protect Tom, which they definitely did pass. The only eye-batting thing is that Isaac apparently has some weird thing in his lungs that they need to check out before they can proceed any forward. But besides that, they're all good to go. They're all good to join the community, and Tom's happy and elated about that. So we get everyone else waking up in their cars, ready to kind of resume their lives. Isaac wakes up first. He gets a call from Tom. They're like, yeah, I'll explain more later, but we're good. There's a whole nother thing we got to do now, so get ready for that. They find the bodyguard over the way, so he lets them know the news. And it turns out, I forgot they mentioned this early, like, yeah, they got the 4 satellite piece already. It turns out to be the bodyguard that gave them the piece, because, again, he's secretly crushing on Tom. He wants to help him out, but of course, obviously, he has all superior lords over him, so he has no choice but to like sneakily sneak this into them. So that works out, and we cut to that. So yeah, so now there's a whole other thing Tom's got to do on top of everything else going on, which I'm like, just great. 4 episodes. How are you going to do it? I don't know. The episode ends with Zazie regrouping back at the Swift, assuming another team meeting's about to take place, but she finds Isaac on the floor, passed out, not responding, and yeah, that's where we end this week's episode of Tom Swift. Me even going through it, I was like, okay, I can understand. Maybe I was a little too critical, but I still think this is like my least favorite episode of the series. I'm not saying it was horrible, but I'm saying it's just not the best. It just felt like everything going on. Like, I do get it. I understand. It's just, this was just like, unless they have an idea for this, unless they know what the purpose is for the next 4 episodes with this plot line of the whole, like, the mountaintop thing, I don't think this was really necessary for this season. This would have been a great plot point for season 2. I could definitely understand how you would lead into that, but it just felt really forced here. It really did. I mean, we could have just done another fun satellite piece hunting episode, or get back to the rollback, learn more about the rollback. There is just a lot of possibilities to be had here. And again, knowing that we have an episode limit, knowing that we are not getting a season 2, it definitely kind of hinders what this season is going to be like, because, I'm going to the season with the knowledge that they were thinking they're getting a season 2, so they were able to, like, they'll expand on these ideas at a later date, but they're not going to be able to. So that's something that I'm a little bit concerned about. I'm a little scared about, but we'll get more about that as we get closer to the end of it. But with this week, I do understand, yeah, the only benefits I'll take away with this is that, yeah, Tom definitely needs to learn, like, he is as smart without his gadgetry, and he's also has to learn on his, impulsiveness. But besides that, otherwise, everyone, did good this week. They did what they had to do. let's see how the mountaintop idea goes. Let's see again, like the whole like thinking like, oh, Tom's dad will be fine. He's got months of oxygen. You know, we could basically go on the vacation to the Bahamas next week, and he'll still be fine. That's not the point here, but like, you know, besides that, you know, I think that's gonna do it for me today, everyone. I'm gonna give this episode 1 thumbs up. It was all right. It's not the best, you know. It really isn't. I'm sorry. Sorry, but I'm allowed to be a little critical sometimes. I'm sorry. That's just the way it is. But, you know, let me know in the comments below, what did you think of this week's episode of Tom Swift? Let's talk down below. Let's begin that conversation. And that's going to do it for me today, everyone. So if you're unaware, this has been What's the Tube from ActionX, reviewing every episode in Tom Swift, the Nancy Drew spin-off. If you want to know what we're doing normally, What's the Tube besides our Tom Swift episode reviews. This week, as we're uploading this, we are uploading our final part to Walker for our coverage this season. We're doing a season 2 review, non-spoiler, so check that out there afterwards. It'll kind of just be the Tom Show review for a little bit of time before High School Musical comes back at the end of the month. Stargirl next month. So lot to do, lots to go. Kind of in that weird, like, you know, we're cutting back a little bit of What's the Two because we're gonna go full throttle this fall. So if we get some weeks we're like, hey, there's only getting 2 episode reviews, something 3, you know, it's just the game we're playing here because, you know, I need to alleviate myself on a little bit of time to have some personal time. We have a whole nother channel to produce, so you understand. If you don't care about Tom Swift, you're in luck. We'll be back next week with another episode review. So now going forward, you know, we have 4 episodes left, so all July with new episodes reviews, so check them out. Then next month we'll be doing a series review, definitive series review. That's about it because we're not getting a season 2. I might give some thoughts where I would like to see the character pop up in Nancy Drew next, since that's still a show. She's still available for crossover, so we'll see how that all goes. We still have some time to go. But again, this has been What's the Two from ActionX. Please subscribe to us on youtube.com/ActionX videos. Ring that bell for notification when our next episode review is live. Please also follow us on social media to stay up to date with any sort of updates that you may have for the channel. And please also like, favorite, share this review if you want to. But for all you members of the Swift Squad, all you Swifters out there, I'll see you all next week for the next episode review. But until then, stay safe out there, be good to each other, and as always, peace out.